right. So let's use a website ng include, right, to implement the list of widgets. I'm not sure how far we got in there. I think we had started with page and then widget. Okay, did we do widgets? I thought we did widgets. Maybe not. Widget. We didn't create widgets at all? Really? Okay, let's play around with widgets. Let's create widget here. We'll say this is widget list dot view dot website list view dot HTML. All right, and we'll put this in a templates directory, templates, because there will be several views under here, plus a controller to go along with this. Controllers. All right, so here's widget list view, and this is going to render a number of widgets. Yes, right. So let's first be able to grab the content of those widgets from a service. Right, we'll need a controller and so on and so forth. Let's first see that we can navigate here. Right, so this will be h2 a widget list. Okay. And we'll create a route to be able to navigate to widgets. All right, so let's see. We have website routes. Let's create, this will be widget routes. Notice that I'm skipping over the pages routes. All right, I'll leave that to you. Let's create a when we have user ID, website, and then this would be website ID, website ID, and then we'll have page, and then page ID, and then widget. Right, so that is going to navigate us to the list of all the widgets. Yes? Right? And I think most of you, this is what you did. So the template for this will be to navigate to views, widget, templates, and this will be widget-list.view.client. client.html. Okay? Let's see. Did I spell it right? User ID. Website ID. Oh, can't type today. Am I missing something? User ID, website ID, page ID, widget. Let me see if I'm getting any errors. I have 2 errors. It says fail to load widget list view client. Okay, so I must have misspelled where it is. This is views. Let's see, views widget, templates. Did I spell this right? Widget list view client. Ha. So this is client. Try it again. All right, there it is. So we have widget list. All right. Oh, okay. So let's see. Where the widget list grab its information? It grabs it from a. It needs to grab it obviously from a controller. That's the only place where it can grab it from, right? All right. So we'll need a controller for it to fetch the data. So let's create a controller for this. Let's see, new controller. So this will be widget list controller dot client dot JavaScript. And the controller, they all look the same at first, right? They all are inside of an iffy expression, right? Angular module, and this is WAM app. And here's a controller, and this is widget list controller. Copy. Implemented in a function of the same name that declares a model, that declares an init function, where we're going to do any initialization. Yes? All right. We declare the controller, and we're going to load it in the index page. Let's not forget to do that. And it's under website, widget controllers, widget list controller. Okay? Once we've done that, we can then declare, we can configure and say that the controller for that template, right? The controller is what? It's this one, right? This is widget list controller, and it's going to refer to it as the model. Yes? All right. And just to verify that these two things are that the controller and the template are talking to one another, we can just have the widget say hello, model.hello. So hello from widget list controller. Yes? Right? So let's make sure that the templates and the controller are talking to one another. So let's render model.hello. Yes? Right? So let's refresh. And indeed, they look like they're talking to one another, right? The template and the controller are talking to one another. So we can see that the controller can now start passing data to the widget. Yes? Right? And we gave you some of that data in the assignment. We gave you a list of dummy widgets. So let's grab them as sample code. Let's see, where are those widgets? Widgets, where are you? Widgets. There they are. Those are the widgets. I'm going to grab this, right? And in the controller, we're going to say model.widgets is equal to that array. Yes? Right? So that means that back on the template, I could render widgets. Widgets. Let's see, render. There they are. That's the array of all the widgets. Correct? Okay. Where would I typically fetch these widgets from? Is this a good practice to have the arrays here in the controller? No, you would have a service do that, right? But I'm going to leave that to you. Okay, so I'm going to focus on talking about ng-include and how to handle that. You already understand how controllers work, how the services work, where you would put it, right? You would have a find widgets for page or something, right? Where you pass in the ID of the page and then you retrieve that that subset of widgets. Yes? Yes? Is everybody okay with that? Right. Instead, I'm going to focus on something else. Here, I'm going to first render this. I'm going to render this. So how would we render it? Well, we could render it using a div. You can say this is a widget. So this is a h2 my widget, and we can iterate over those widgets and create a widget instance for every widget in the array of widgets. Right. So if I refresh this, notice that indeed I'm creating a whole bunch of widgets, right? One for each instance that is in the array in the widget list. Everybody okay? Right? Okay. Right now it's just pasting all the widgets. Or we could render each object widget. So there they are, right? So these are the JSON objects of each one of the widgets. So there's some headings, some images, HTML, heading, YouTube, and HTML. Yes? All right. So let's render some of these. Well, how about the heading? Well, what we could do is we need a mechanism that would allow us to programmatically decide that, you know, if it's a heading, then we're going to render it one way. If it's an image, we'll render it some other way. If it's an HTML, we'll render it yet in another way. So to do that, Angular provides a mechanism similar to the switch case that you have in JavaScript and many other languages, right? That it allows you to look at a variable, and depending on that variable, allows you to choose any branch out, right? Depending on the value of a variable. What we want to do is want to branch out on the widget type. Depending on the widget type, we want to do different things. Yes, right? So let's do that. Let's do that. We're iterating over that. We're going to do a we're going to say ng switch. All right, we're going to say ng switch. Ng switch is very much like the switch that you have in other languages, right? It's going to look at a variable, and depending on that variable, it's going to allow us to choose from many options. Okay, so we're going to choose on the widget type. And depending on that type, we're going to choose different things. If the if the widget type is equal to heading, we want to do something, right? If it's equal to what else do we have? If it's equal to image, then we want to do something else, right? If it's equal to HTML, we want to do yet something else. If it's YouTube, then we're going to do something else. YouTube. I think those are the three or four options, right? Just 4 options. If it's heading, we're going to display, this is a heading, or this is an image, or this is HTML, or this is a YouTube video, right? So that if I render it, notice that indeed we are displaying, right, different contents depending on the type, right? And so it behaves almost identical to switch case in JavaScript or Java or any of the higher level languages. Yes, but this is certainly not what we want to do. What we want to do, if it's a heading, what do we want to do? Well, we want to render H something, right? H1 or H2, H3, depending on what? Depending on the size of the heading, right? And we have that in our code. We have size, depending on this size. Depending on the size, we would like to render H1, H2, H3, H4, right? So it'd be great if we could do this. Widget.size. Unfortunately, this will fail. The browser is going to look at this and says, no, that looks weird. I don't know any HTML element that has that weird name, right? And the problem is that the browser looks at this first, right? The browser looks at this and says, well, I have no idea how to render that. It's H some weird element name, and anyway, Angular doesn't allow you to interpolate values in the element name. Okay? You can't do that. So instead, we're going to have to do something that we just did here. What we're going to do is that we would like to decide on to do either H1 or H2, right, or H3, right, or H4, H5, or H6. Depending on what? Depending on the size, right? So basically, we want to do a switch again, right? We want to switch. We want to say we're going to grab an internal div. We're going to say I want you to switch again. On what now? On the widget size, right? Depending on the size. Depending on the size, I want you to render either H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Yes? Right? We're going to say if the size is 1, then I want you to render this. If it's 2, I want you to render this one, right? Or if it's 3, I want you to render that one, and so on and so forth. So these are nested switch cases, right? It's an outer switch case, and then one of the cases is another nested switch case. That makes sense, right? So let's do that. Here would be 5, and this would be 6. Okay. What about the content? What do you want to render here? What we render there is the actual text, right? The actual text in the widget, right? So, so this is going to render the actual widget.text, right? And we want that. They're all going to render the same thing regardless, right? But only one of them is going to render. Only one of them is going to render. Right? So if I render this, notice that indeed Gizmodo, lorem ipsum, and modem ipsum are rendering, right? Right in the correct style, in the correct formatting. if I look at the DOM, if I inspect it, we'll see that that indeed, notice that here's our outer div with our switch, and notice that only one made it into the DOM. See that? All the other ones did not make it into the DOM. See that? It's just commented out. It's not being rendered. Right? Same thing with the next one over, this one, right? But this one, it was switch size number 4, right? So this one was 2, was rendering, but this one was number 4. That make sense? Yes.
What if we use ng show there instead of ng switch event? So like ng show.
Yeah. So the problem is that ng show adds it to the DOM, but then it just doesn't display, right? And so that puts a burden on the browser, unnecessary burden on the browser, that it adds it to the DOM, right? But then you don't display it, right? So it's still part of the DOM. So it has to, it does, you are wasting memory, right, on rendering something that it's never going to render, right? ng show is more for, I want it there because it might show or toggle, maybe, right? I want it there because I want to show it and then not show it, right? And oftentimes, you can either use ngIf or ng show. ngIf is when you first come to the template, when it first loads and compiles. Do you ever want to show this in the DOM? And then you would use ngIf, right? Especially if the content is pretty big, and so you don't want to just load that into the DOM and then just not show it, right? If you're going to toggle it and you're going to need it in the DOM anyway, then ng show is okay, right? This is using ngIf. Right, it's not even loading it into the DOM. Notice that it's not even in the DOM. Okay. All right. So there it is. So we used dynamic ng switch ng switch when to be able to load things in the DOM programmatically depending on values. Let's move on to ng switch when for the images. Okay. Let's do that next.